All right. All right. Thank you, Sonia, for making it out this morning. Productivity coach extraordinaire, realtor, just absolutely crushing it in the field. If you can just jump right in and share a little bit about who you are, how you got started, and we'll take it from there.
Yeah. So I started in 2015, which actually was very much a similar market to now, right? Everybody had like gone in, sold a bunch of property. Everyone was a cash buyer. There were a bunch of offers on every single house, every single, anything that was being sold was hot. And so the economy had just kind of bounced back. And of course, I didn't know any better. I was just like, hi, I'm new. I want to sell some real estate. So for me, I just went to my team leader and I said, you know, what should a new agent do? I didn't have a coach or anything, right? There was no productivity coaching at that time. And I was like, okay, so what should a new agent do? And he's like, well, call your database. I was like, okay, I want to be really good. I'm going to call my database. So I downloaded my whole database, my phone, onto an Excel sheet, and I started going through it. And then I did it in like 1 week. And then the next week I went to him again, and what should I do now? Who should I call now? And he's like, call your database. And I was like, well, what? That's stupid. I just called them last week. Like, if they already told me they're not doing anything, like, how could they, like, don't tell me to call my database again, you know? And and then he was like, no, you don't call them to ask them, like, what, like, are you going to buy or sell or whatever? I said, oh. And he's like, no, you're building an army. And I said, oh, an army. Okay, so I'm getting them to tell me if they know of anyone. He's like, yeah. I'm like, oh, okay, I get it now. So then I started calling people just to have like relationships with them. And found a couple of deals. It's always the last person you call, right? Mm-hmm. But then I was like, okay, no, I really want to do like something like faster, like chop. I'm a high D. Like, how can I get more deals right now? And so he said, well, call for sale by owners. So I started calling for sale by owners in this super hot market. And every single for sale by owner that I called, they're like, why would I list with you? Because I already have offers on the table, right? And I said, I'm sure you do. You know, I'm calling you, right? So I'm sure you've got offers on the table. But you should list with me anyway. Can I come by and take a look at your house? And they're like, well, yeah, you know, why don't you just, yeah, you can come by. I'm over here. I'm painting. I'm doing this. I'm getting it ready. Da, da, da. And I'm like, all right. So I started going around to the houses. And so then I said to my team leader again, my poor team leader, I was like, so like, how many appointments do you think an average agent goes on? And he was like, 3. And I meant in 1 day. And he thought I meant in a month.
Oh. That's crazy good. Talk about mindset.
Yeah. So I was like trying to figure out it in a day, because I was calling these people and they're like, yeah, come on by, you know? And so he said 3. So I thought, okay, 3 appointments. I thought, okay, I can call from 9 to noon. And then in the afternoon, I could go to like 3 different previews, go see 3 different, you know, for sale by owners. So I was going on 15 appointments the day that I started calling for sale by owners. For 14 days straight, I was going on 3 appointments every single day. So 15 appointments a week. And whether or not they were committed or not committed, but on the 14th day, I listed 2 properties in the same day. and that was like, yes. And everyone's like, what are you doing? I said, nothing except for what my team leader told me to do. And, and he's like, okay, I meant 3 in a month, but whatever, you just keep doing that thing that you're doing.
That's a crazy mindset right there when you think about it, because some people think, oh, you know, I gotta meet so many people, make so many contacts in order to get to even 1 appointment. And here you are, just blinders on and just calling right through your database. You hit for sale by owners and you didn't put them in the hot seat. You were more like, hey, let me take a look at your house. I feel you should still list with me, but no harm in me taking a look at your place, right? So
yeah. Yeah, you know, and I had one of the top agents came up to, I was standing with my team leader when I was having this conversation, like the day after I listed 2 of the properties. Because I came into the office and I said, I got I listed 2 properties yesterday. And he was like, what? And, and I said, no, like I went on all these appointments and then 2 people said they want to list with me, right? He was all, okay, cool. Well, you know, let me know when you've got those contracts. And I was like, here you go. They're right here. They were wet signatures at the time, right? And so, and I said, here you go. And he was like, you mean you actually got them signed? And so, like, I think he just thought that I was saying like, I got 2, yay, you know?
Wow,
And
awesome.
yeah, so I'm sitting there talking to him, and right when I said that, he was like, okay, so you got 2 signatures. And I said, yeah. And this top agent in our office, who's an agent. So at this time I was in Portland, Oregon. I should have said that in the beginning. Sorry. I started as in Cody Gibson's Market Center in Portland. And, and somebody on Cody's team literally walked past us and shook the team leader's hand and said, hey, your new agent just beat me on this listing appointment. She went faster than I did. I had an appointment on Friday with them, and that was a Wednesday. So my lesson there was always try to bump it closer if you can, you know. When they say I can't meet until Friday, I was just like, oh, well, you know, actually I'm going to be in the area later today. Could I be there at, you know, would you be there at 4, or, you know, is tomorrow at 2 better? But the sooner you can bump it, right? Everybody kind of knows that if they say, okay, I'm looking in 6 months, then you can say, you know, okay, great, let's talk in 3 months, right? So that way you're not,
time.
Yeah.
What got you from Portland down to SoCal? What brought you down here?
So I actually ran into some really amazing people at Mega Camp in Austin, Texas, and they were like, well, you should totally come down to California. And I was like, well, I think I'd rather kill myself, but no, I love California. It's just that when I left California 10 years before, it was 2008, terrible time, right? And it was just traffic everywhere. And I just really felt like I couldn't get ahead with anything. And so I had gone up to Portland, Oregon with a job, and yeah, so I got really lucky. Then those people, they were like, well, you know, you should just come visit anyway, come hang out with us. And they took me bike riding on the beach. They took me to see some really great music. They like introduced me to a guy, you know, and I was like, okay, never mind, I'll reconsider. So that's how I ended up down here again. And I love it. It was great. It's a good decision.
Wow, that's awesome. There you go. Like it's like just part of the adventure. And hey, it started at Mega Camp. How crazy is that?
Yeah, you know, I always say this, but I've always only been with Keller Williams. Like I walked into a KW office because my friend told me that they were great. And I went in and at the time, I mean, this market center, guys, like, I don't know how to describe it, but it is like, it's in the middle of nowhere. I was talking with Josh Spitzen about this the other day, and I was like, have you been to Cody's Market Center? And he said, yeah, that place in the middle of nowhere. Like it's in Portland, Oregon, but it's like on the east side, and it's not in a mall or anything. Like it's just a standalone little thing. But you walk in there and it's like a buzzing beehive. Like there's like so much amazing energy, and everyone's like around a table, and you know, like it's just really great. I just love it when there's a lot of energy in the office, you know.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, I walked in there and I thought to myself, is this real life? Because it was such a 180 for me. I was coming from the car business, so everybody was nice. I was like, are these people real? But
I walk into energy like that all the time.
Yeah, I mean, energy, everything's energy, right? So no, yeah. So, you know, I always say this, but I'm not leaving Keller Williams because I really do think that my life has been on such a crazy upward, you know, hill and upward, like, I don't know what you call it, a journey, since I started with Keller Williams. And And if I had not gone to mega camp and team family reunions and all those like, you know, bigger events, I don't know that I would be with Calabasas anymore, honestly, because you know, things happen at the market center levels, and it's kind of like just step on over it and stick with the vision. And every time I think, oh, it would be really great if we had this and this and this, here comes Gary. He's like, so we've been working on this for 2 years.
Right,
like, oh.
Here we go.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, so that's kind of my thing. Yeah.
Oh, for sure. It's crazy when you go to an event like that, and it could be even Tony Robbins, but you know, you go to Tony Robbins, you go to Mega Camp, Family Reunion, you kind of be able to step off a cliff or on a cliff with a view of like what's ahead, what's behind you, what's in front of you right now, and it's perspective, right? It's like, oh, I didn't even know these opportunities existed. Holy cow. And another point, hey, Andrew, when it comes to, you transitioned from Portland, from a whole nother state to SoCal or back to SoCal. I imagine you were right back into calling your database, calling for sale by owner. And then somewhere in there, you transitioned to being like the productivity coach for our entire region. I didn't know that. You know, I remember hearing your name and you were like, oh, my productivity coach is Sonia. I'm like, oh, I never met Sonia. But how did you make that transition from like agent, and you're still an agent, you're still selling real estate, I believe, you know, on top of mentoring and being the productivity coach for numerous agents. How did that transition happen, and how do you manage that? Because that's essentially like running 2 or 3 companies all at one time.
Yeah, it's a lot. So 2 things, right? I'm kind of like, it's one of those things, like I joke with my friends, I'm like, can I just go full towels at Target? Like, it would be so nice to just not think about anything. And my friend always says, yeah, but you know, Sonia, the next thing that would happen is you'd become the manager of that place, right? And so you guys know, yeah, it's one of those things, like if you have that drive and you just constantly want to problem solve and like really just make things better and make things run better. So for me, I was an agent. I did a couple of deals, and then once I got my feet wet, I was like, oh, because it seems such a huge thing, right? Like when you first get into real estate, you're just like, I don't know anything. Oh my God, there's contracts. It seems like such a big thing, right? And so I was really like on this path to like, I want to figure it out. I want to be really good. And then I did a couple of deals, and then I was like, oh, okay, I think I get it now. Now what? And what happened is one of my office friends, who's to this day my best friend, he and I were in the back of the Ignite class. There were 35 people in this Ignite class, right? And we were in the back seat, like, do you get this? I don't get it. What are we gonna do? You know? and we're like, we're gonna have to figure this out. And so when, and out of that 35 people, by the way, there's only 3 of us left.
Wow. Is that the numbers of our industry? Out of 80% who join in year 1, by year 5, those 80% are out. Is that about right, or is that?
I think you're right. And I think, you know, and we're also headed towards, you know, when the market shifts, a lot of people kind of just those people that are, you know, just keeping their license or whatever, you know, they're already kind of falling out. There's lots of reasons to have a license, right? I mean, even leadership, right? People who have licenses. But yeah, so then when I listed some properties, and he was like, dude, what are you doing? Like, I don't get it. And I said, I don't know. I'm just calling. Like, I just started. I didn't even know the script. Someone put it in front of me and I just did it. And, and he was like, oh my God. Okay. So I started going over the script with him, and I was like, just do this, just call this, just do this. And I swear to God, to this day, he tells me that is the only day I've ever picked up as a cold call. Like, that phone as a cold call, Sonia, only because you made me. He's like, I've never done it again.
Wow.
But that's a guy that sold 33 transactions in his first year out of referrals only. So wow. that was his way of getting there, right? But it took him a minute to build it up, but then it all came as a flood. So so I kind of like fell into the coaching side a little bit, because I was seeing results, right? So everybody was asking me like, what are you doing? And I was like, it's simple, you know, it's not easy, but it's simple. And just pick up the phone. Who cares? Like,
what a concept.
Yeah, and by the way, when I say cold calling, because it's not cold, they're hot. They're hot. They're already raising their hand going, I'm listing. I am listing, right? And so they're already raising their hand. They're saying they're gonna list with or without you. And so with the statistic being that for sale by owner specifically, 98% of them end up listing with a professional real estate agent like yourselves, right? And the other 2% that don't, I mean, maybe less than 1% end up selling on their own, but the other 1% is completely unrealistic. They're like the make me movers and all those people, right? So in reality, it's the majority of them, it's just whoever gets to them first, you know?
Wow. And initially, where were you getting your for sale by owner calls from? Just like Revo Gateway or
Mojo.
Mojo. Oh, there you go. And I think a lot of people may have access to Mojo, or with their mentor, they may be able to just call direct and work it from there. That's awesome. And then even today, I mean, if you fast forward the clock, we've had the pandemic, and I imagine that's where you just kind of really immerse yourself in the market centers as a productivity coach with Zoom and everything else. Now we're kind of coming out of that fog. And where do you see where do you see your business heading, both the productivity side, the personal database, and your lead gen business, and then the market itself? Like, how are you going to capitalize on the market of the moment and the market we're heading into? Sorry, that's like 4 questions in there.
It's okay. I do that too. Like question, right? No, it paints the path. So here's the deal. When you help other people be accountable, it's impossible to not be accountable yourself, right? It's just, that's why teaching is so powerful. Like I always tell this to other agents. So like, I mean, you know this, like to learn something really well, go teach it. But to start really implementing something in your life, go teach it. Because once you teach it, it's impossible not to like do it for yourself, right? And so when I started coaching people, I saw my business was taking off like crazy. And I had to make a decision in that moment, like, is this what I'm gonna do? Or is this what I'm gonna do? I can't really do both, only because it's just a lot, right? Like imagine going full speed up both lanes, right? So it's just kind of like, you got to make some calls there. So I said, okay, I'm going to go with this coaching thing. I'm going to let go of my business. So pretty much for me, I refer most of my business. I don't really I lead generate, obviously, now that I'm in more leadership roles for other agents and recruits and people to my program and so forth and so forth. So that's my lead gen. But, yeah, but I do a couple of deals here and there, but it's such a crazy thing because nobody takes a leadership position to get rich. Can I just tell you all that?
Right.
Like that's not why we do it. It's because we do it because, there's something more there. And so it's that, I don't know, I always have this conversation with my coach. We talk about like, why does it feel good to help other people, right? And there is no reason really. I mean, you could say it's ego or whatever, but it's just something that is there, right? That like, it just brings that gratitude and abundance and everything back to your heart, right? So
well, I think what you're doing, just kind of taking a step further, is creating passive wealth. Like you think about all the emotions. Hey, you think of all the emotions you run through in a transaction. Like I deal with buyer agents and listing agents on the other side, and something as simple as a request for repair kind of drives them off a cliff. Like, oh my God, how can you be requesting these things? Like, wow, this should be a normal conversation, routine dialogue, and the stress level that you feel is almost zero. Right? Because you're referring it out to a top agent or someone you have high degree of trust for. You're probably matching it on this profile. And in the end, you're getting, I don't know, anywhere between 25 to 35% referral fee, almost like mailbox money. What's that? Like mail-in money, mail-in checks, right? So it's almost like you're building a passive income stream between your brand, your reputation, who you are. I wouldn't be surprised if one day you built your own op city, like through that database that you're building out there.
Yeah, I mean, the passive income, man, I'll be real. I mean, the struggle is real sometimes, and And even when it's not real, like this past week, right? We passed through the 21st, which is our profit share day. And I have 4 different accounts. One is the business one, and then there's like a savings and a tax account, and then the regular checking account, right? And so I moved money, and I was like, I got a notification. I was teaching a class actually, and I got a ding on my phone saying, hey, you have an overdraft fee. And I'm like, what? And so, I mean, you know, the struggle is real sometimes. And I'm like, oh God, I got to move money. And then I went into my account, and right at that time, profit share hit. And it was $1,300 for me, which is not, I do somewhere between like, you know, 0 to maybe, I think probably 2,500-ish is my biggest one that I've had. It just totally depends, right? But profit share, man, that is a really real thing. And you know, $1,300, that's like 2-3 car payments, you know?
Oh,
And
yeah.
so like that's a big deal. Yeah, passive income and all of that stuff. And so, you know, with that being said, you can work all day long, all year long, whether it's helping others or whether it's just doing your own sales. But if you're not paying attention to the passive income side, I mean, it kind of just seems like an endless hamster wheel, right?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, then we're just on this like roller coaster. So the passive income side is definitely, I love that you brought that up, because that's, we can't just focus on the now as realtors, right? Because the day you sell your last house, you got nothing more coming in. So.
Oh, yeah. It reminds me of that Robert Kiyosaki story from the cash flow quadrant. He starts the book off with, hey, there's 2 men in the village. It doesn't have to be men, but 2 men in the village. One man, they both vie for contracts to bring water to the village. One guy gets contract A, other guy gets contract B. Guy with contract B disappears. Contract A starts hauling buckets. He takes 2 buckets of water, fills the well every morning, money comes in. But he does it every morning before the sun comes up to make sure the well is filled with water, and he gets paid. The other guy who had disappeared, you know, created a business plan, said, hey, I'm gonna hire people. And he came back and built a pipeline from the water source all the way to the village. The village now has all this water. You know, person A is still hauling water buckets every day, every morning to fill the well. The other guy makes a little bit of money, but it just constantly flows without him ever having to haul buckets of water. Moral of the story there is, hey, if you build a business, a pipeline for the long haul, and that could be for any of us, could be rentals, could be profit share, could be referral business that we just send out. I throw this idea out there because a lot of us may start part-time and not realize that our database, though we might not be able to do, we would like to do 1,000 deals ourselves, but what if we referred 1,000 deals out and still did the things that we are doing today? Right, just kind of an idea out there. The last 5 minutes, I wanted to ask you, with the shift in the market coming up, or all the things that are happening, interest rates going up, property prices going up, a ton of people wanting to buy. I mean, it's just economics there. What are you preparing your coaching clients for? And what are you kind of seeing on your side? Because you're seeing more deals than me because you're working with so many people. What's happening in that realm?
Yeah, so I mean, my team normally, each office, we normally do about 55 to 60 transactions a year as like the new agent teams, right? Per office. So we do quite a bit of deals, and you know, you guys know how it is. Like it's when you're newer, I mean, yes, you can go after the cold stuff, you know, or the immediate FSBOs or expires, but most of it comes from the database, and it's a little different thing, right? So as the market cools off or whatever, I mean, we're definitely heading into a shift. No matter what, we're in a shift, and we're heading into a deeper shift. The rates are going to go up, affordability is going to go down, and I would say, I think right now is the time to stash cash. It's time. Don't spend all of it. Read the shift. Take the 9 shift principles that there are, which the first one is get real, right? But it's not a thing that you have to fear. It's just, you have to just do the right things, right? Because there's enough business. Nobody on this call, or even there's not one agent in California that if 50% of the market went away, that it could actually affect their market share in their market. Nobody here has 50% already. So
Right.
if you even have 1% of your market share, right? Like you're taking 10 listings a month and everybody's taking, 1,000 in your whatever, right? Like whatever it is, or 100 or whatever in your market, just even if 50 of those goes away, it doesn't mean that you have to like do anything. All you have to do is make sure that you're still doing it, right?
Yeah.
Because you're still going to take that market share that other people weren't doing. I mean, it's the 80-20 rule. That's how I look at it, right? 80% of the realtors are selling only 20% of the real estate out here. And so those 80 can disappear and you'll still have 80%, right? Because the 20% are selling the 80% of the real estate. And so, but I mean, it's a real thing. We are going into a shift and you're going to want to have cash on hand, right? So now is the time to stash cash, get lean, get real about it. And I think that would be the smart option.
Totally.
Yeah. So.
No, absolutely. And there's also this element of preparing our clients for that eventual move, right? I'm really telling clients like, hey, if there is a dramatic change in market price, the first thing we can do is go to the assessor's office and get a new assessment on the value of your home, pay smaller taxes, right? I'm a big believer in insurance and, get your life insurance, get your savings in place, all that stuff. You got a question from Mona. What do you say to those who don't want to sell or buy because of the shift? Any objection handlers or thoughts on that?
Yeah, awesome question. Well, before I tell you my objection handler, I'll say that I just really think that if you or your client can afford to buy anything at all, whether it's a $200,000 condo or, whatever it is that they're trying to do with these, the rates are going to keep going up. And, for every percent that the rate goes up, you lose about 10% of your buying power, right?
Yep.
So if you're at $1 million for the same payment at 5%, when the rate goes up to 6%, you can only afford a $900,000 house. And so your affordability and right, like buying power is going down. So no matter what, you should, if you can afford to buy anything, you should buy something now, because you're not just buying the payment, you're not just buying the house, you're buying the payment for the next 30 years, right?
And if we summarize that, it's more like finding their pain points. To answer Mona's question in that dialogue, it's, hey, we got to dig deeper on their pain points. What are their goals? I mean, a lot of times, though, that people shouldn't sell their house. If I'm 68, 75 years old, I already have my single floor house and this meets all my needs and I just want to pass it to my kids through my estate, I'm not going to sell. I might do a reverse loan and leverage that, but I might not. So you just got to dig deeper in terms of what it is. And like you said earlier, at the start of your conversation, you said you were building an army. So like the people in the database, the people on our farms, hey, they're not all going to sell right this moment. We don't want them to, right? We're going to be in business over this time. But when life happens, they can refer you, the top person, top of mind, one or two, right? And then off you go. At least you have a shot at the appointment. Hey, you might just be the only person to sell their house, help them buy a house, but you're converting that army.
Yeah. And so exactly what you said is that talk about the long-term goals. That's the objection handler right there. Because most people think that the market goes like this, right? They think it goes up and down. So when they say is now a good time to buy, they're talking about, are we up here? Or are we down here on the curve? Right. And but you're really talking about the curve is actually like this. Yes. Right. So you have to be able to give people visuals, talk about their long-term goals, and you can't make somebody do something. So every time you talk to someone, you only have two goals: motivation, appointment. Motivation, appointment, motivation, appointment, motivation, appointment, right? When you have that, now you're in business. If you don't have motivation, no reason to go on an appointment.
Exactly. There's no convincing in what we do. It's more constant calling to assess. Hey, is there motivation there to do ABC? Or, okay, cool, we're going to keep the pot boiling or keep it simmering, and I'm going to make 20 more calls. You know, yeah, because all we can control, like you, I think you shared this in Round Rock, Texas. You were saying, hey, we can really just control our attitude and activity. We can come in excited, we can come in energized, and I can go make 100 calls today, right? Or whatever the activity is. But if we just control those two things and load our pipeline up, we're a little bit past 8:30, and then we started a little late to make sure everyone was on here. Any final thoughts before we hit end?
Yeah, you just reminded me of a great final thought, which is ATM, right? How do you get the money, right? So you have the added ATM, A for attitude, and T for team, and M, I can't even think right now whatever it is, but it's probably something measurable.
Measurable. That's awesome.
So, right, but like you gotta just, you know, it starts with the B. It's not do, be, have, right? It's be, do, have. Who do you show up as? Who do you need to be that successful person? Like, what would it look like for you to take, you know, 20 listings this year? And like, what would that look like? Who would you need to show up as, right? It starts with who we are. And that's what I would say about that. I think that's a really important point to think about in all of it.
Wow, Sonia, that was killer. Thank you so much. Really appreciate you. There's a lot of clapping going on. Thank you so much. You just totally crushed it.
Awesome, you guys. Well, make it a powerful day. Happy Friday. Yay.
Awesome.